and updates. So I'm sure by now, I didn't look at the Oscars last night. I've been kind of giving myself a break from award shows, and I just haven't been watching a lot lately. And I'm not, this is not a religious thing or anything like that, um, or anything like that. It's just more or less me just taking a little bit of a breather. But did get a chance to see some clips. I got a chance to see Beyonce's phenomenal opening um, number, and it was good. Um, it's been now made into a music video, so it's available on YouTube if you want to watch it. Um, uh, I also got a chance to see the slap that was heard across around the world, and so when I was looking at it at first, so of course all of the vloggers and different other people that do commentary on such things have been Monday morning quarterbacking all morning long. And so, because I am the age that I am and have lived to see a lot of things, I'm still trying to process whether or not the whole thing, because you had people saying, no, that wasn't staged. No, that wasn't staged. I was looking at comedian Marsha Warfield's Facebook, and so she talked about staffers saying that the slap and all of that wasn't there in the rehearsal. I said, so he knew that this joke was going to be, because to me, you not reacting as part of the rehearsal doesn't still mean that it wasn't staged, but the fact that he knew that this joke was going to be a part of Chris Rock's thing. Now I don't know like how they rehearse stuff like that. Like I'm not familiar with, you know, I'm familiar with some things and articles that people talk about what goes on or whatever. I'm like, so did he know about the joke, or during rehearsal was Chris Rock planning on doing the joke because he couldn't have known what Jada was going to wear. I don't know how deep into rehearsal they do that. When I heard the GI Jane joke, I thought she was working on another movie because I'm so used to people, you know, celebrities, especially actors and actresses, having products in the works that they're planning on doing. That I am, so I didn't quite get it at first until I thought about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, she's bald and she has on green, this green dress and everything. But like I said, I'm still waiting for the jury to come in on this one. I'm still trying to process whether or not the whole thing was actually real. I saw where some people were a little upset with Will Smith's reaction to the quote, the slide on his wife. It really didn't become it didn't really become even a semblance of real to me because I'm so used to people of that world staging things and putting things out there and making things appear to be something that and you find out the whole thing was staged and it was just a joke. And so I'm still processing it, but I'm gonna go into some current events here. So the Senate panel is meeting to consider Jackson, Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, not that Miss Jackson, um, Katanji Brown Jackson, as she inches closer to Supreme Court. So I haven't been watching the hearings, but from what I've been, hearing from other people and from my mother, it seems as though they're asking her a whole lot of questions that have nothing to do with whether or not they feel that she would be a good candidate for the Supreme Court. So this is courtesy of NBC News. So Miss Katanji, Judge Katanji Brown Jackson will inch closer to the Supreme Court on Monday when the Senate Judiciary Committee meets to review her nomination after a week of tense hearings. The panel is not expected to vote until April 4th. Then the full Senate will vote later that week, requiring a simple majority to grant Jackson, 51, a federal appeals judge, a lifetime appointment on the High Court. Her nomination got a major boost Friday when two Democrats from conservative states, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and John Tester of Montana, came out in favor of her, putting her in a strong position to win confirmation. So this is going to be interesting. I think we're like closer and closer to making history with the first African American um, woman to get the spot. So I'm happy about that. Like with everything else that's going on, um, Jeff Carson passed. So Jeff Carson, this is courtesy Deadline Hollywood, chart-topping country singer turned policeman, was 58 years old. So Jeff Carson, who had 14 songs make it into the Billboard country music charts, died this past Saturday in a Franklin, Tennessee hospital from a heart attack. He was 58. Now that I'm in midlife, my own self, and am dealing with the whole issue of diabetes too, it is something to. I can remember when I thought midlife was so far away when I was younger, and the whole thing of contemplating mortality, because the older you get, the more of your friends and people that are in your age group are dying. And it's just like, not only just those in your age group, but people who you felt like would be around forever are passing away. And it's something, it's really something else. Um, I hope those of you who were able to make my past broadcast this past Friday night at midnight. Um, I will be doing. There will be another one 2 weeks. I won't be doing one this Friday. I will still be doing Fridays live at noon. Um, this week I will be podcasting. I still have to do part two of religion and its place in the manosphere. So
Amy Schumer was the last person who saw fame coming.
sorry. I have my TV on, and if you have a Roku device, you know how if you're on YouTube and you accidentally let the cursor be over that particular channel, sometimes it'll give you a little bit of preview of what's on the channel, what's going to be on that particular episode, and that's what that was. So, as I said before, when I look at that, um, when I look at the whole mortality issue, as a born again Christian, my biggest thing that I always ask is if they knew Christ leaving here, because I'm dead serious about accepting, God in your life. So many people leave here, and this life is not promised. There are no promises in this life. There's no promise that you're gonna live. Of course, we know that you're not gonna live forever. Okay, death is an appointment that every one of us has, and some of us sooner than others. Um, it's something else. You keep reading about these people, so I'm trying to remember if I remember Jeff Carson. I kind of do, because okay, Pop Sugar is saying no celebrity was safe during the Oscars opener. So, like I said before, I have been kind of taking a. There was a time when I wouldn't have missed a award show to save my mama's life. Okay, and here lately, I've been kind of taking a little bit. I recognize that award shows for the celebrity are part of their job. They come with the territory of being an actor, actress, singer, or being a part of the entertainment industry. However, since I ain't a part of that world, just drip, okay, and I can take some time off from it, and so that's what I've been doing. But if you have social media, or you have YouTube, or any of that other stuff, you're kind of not free from the major highlights showing up in your feed and everything. And so when I saw the clip of, I'm like, did he really hit him? And like I said, I'm so used to things that are part of that world kind of being either staged or just not being very real. I'm waiting for somebody to, I'm waiting for, some more information to come out. There are people who are suggesting that Will Smith, there are other people. I think Will Smith has such a wholesome image. And when you have a wholesome image, when you have the nice guy image, or the image of the guy who, ain't a gangster rapper or ain't street, there are people who tend to expect a little more out of you. And so I don't judge him for defending his wife. I can kind of understand that. It takes a lot to do what they're doing with Red Table Talk and everything, wanting to put all your stuff out of there, wanting to shatter illusions for people over what their life might be like. Because there's the part that people show you on social media, in the press, when they're giving interviews and all that happy stuff there. And then there's what's really going on. So I think that, since they have been doing Red Table Talk, we're being invited into parts of their life that at one point were very, very private. So, and like I said before, since, he has the image um, of being a bit on the wholesome side when it comes to, and it is image. We don't really know. He's a normal person, so we got a chance to see his normal side, his human side. Um, Let me see here. So for Florida amusement park horror, um, Dollywood closes um, drop tower ride made by same manufacturer as Orlando Freefall. Okay, that's interesting. Let me see here. Florence Flojo's husband, Al Joyner, reportedly has brought back her memorabilia. This is courtesy of the Atlantic Black Star. Um, This is courtesy BET. St. Louis girl shoots cousin and herself on Instagram Live. Oh my God. So a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old are dead after accidental shooting during an Instagram Live. Okay, so this was kind of, according to USA Today, um, Paris Harvey, 12, and Coran Harvey, 14, were on Instagram Live in the early morning hours of March 25th as they were attending a birthday party for a family member. At approximately 2 a.m., they were in the bathroom alone. Paris, a seventh grader, reached for the gun and it accidentally fired. Um, St. Louis Today reports both children were shot in the head. They were pronounced dead at the scene. So, evidently, from what they're saying, they were making a video and she was playing with the gun and it went off. It hit him. And then, to my knowledge, when she picked it up by the barrel and it just went off again. It was not a suicide, it was just a freak accident. I am not a big fan of guns to begin with. I have never owned one, and I only owned a stun gun. And I didn't purchase my stun gun until I started going through a whole lot of crazy from a former denomination. Um, the cults are real, and the damage that cults do to people is very much real. Um, also, so as I said Friday night, if you are a fan of Hillsong, you owe it to yourself to see the Hillsong documentary. So, in the midst of the documentary airing, um, the one guy who was over at that Brian, what's his name, has resigned. There's been at least three or four pastors that have resigned from Hillsong, even locally here in the states, in lieu of the documentary. And I constantly hear prophetic words about praying for pastors and praying for church leaders. I think you need to pray for their victims as well. Um, I don't come from a background where I believe that church leadership automatically should be a man thing. Never have. I believe that leadership goes to the most qualified. I remember at one point listening to D.L. Hughley, and they had a topic because at the time people were considering voting for Hillary Clinton, and we see how that went. Um, it always amazes me that when people have the question of, some people would rather have a terrible male as a leader than a qualified woman, which is very scary. And I kind of feel that way with what they've been putting Miss Brown Jackson through for the Supreme Court seat. Like, if a woman is too qualified, you got to go through purity hell before someone, will go ahead and get and appoint you that seat. Meanwhile, an unqualified man, and especially an unqualified white man, for whatever reason, because they're white and male, will get considered for a seat that a more qualified woman or woman of color will have to fight tooth and nail to get in. I really honestly believe that that was the case with that presidential election. Y'all just can't divorce the whole that whole image. We have an image problem. We just can't divorce the whole idea that the most qualified person for a place of authority may not always possess a penis, and may not always be white. Okay. And so, I thought about that at the time. And so me and my daughter were both, having a conversation while we're listening to the radio. And I said, I personally do not believe that leadership is a position for a man. I wasn't raised in church, so I was not raised with that type of thinking. And I just, said if, leadership was a place for a man, then all men would lead well. All men don't lead well. Many men abuse authority. Okay, many men abuse. Yeah, because we still got another week left for Women's History Month. I looked up what April is, and so there's several different things that you can celebrate for April. Um, there's also Black Women's History Month, and so I was do I want to celebrate Black women's history? I don't have a problem celebrating Black women's history. I think my issue is I celebrated women's history back in Black History Month in February. So I've had 2 solid months of celebrating um, 28 days of Black feminism and then 31 days of global feminism. I could talk about women's issues all day long. In fact, I think that for April, I won't have an official whatever month, but I'm still going to talk about women's causes because what I'm going to do for April is talk about all of the stuff that I didn't get to talk about during February and didn't get to talk about during March. So April may just be my carryover month that I get to go ahead and continue to talk about these things because, as I said before, I don't have a problem talking about Black history 12 months out of the year. I'm Black. It's also part of my history. African history is part of my history. Black history is part of my history. It is all part of my history, so I don't have a problem talking about it all year long. I also don't have a problem setting aside a month to celebrate it, to concentrate celebrating on it either. Um, Same way with women's history. For me, it was 30. It's been 31 days of global feminism because not only have I celebrated notables who have made history within the thing of feminism and women's rights, I've also gotten a chance to talk about um, different issues that are important within the arc of women's rights. Um, I may still do when Black Women's History Month, but for me, I guess because for me it's been Black Women's History Month since February. Okay, so I have dedicated 2 whole months to the cause, and really my life is dedicated to the cause. So I don't have a problem discussing different things, that I feel like are an injustice to women. So if you have been following my new horror blog, the Bloody Lampshade, I put up 2 of my first inaugural posts for Bloody Lampshade. So Bloody Lampshade, the title is kind of a take on old school murder mysteries when they would come on the scene of the crime and they would see blood on the lampshade and different things where the murder took place and blood got everywhere and they see blood on the lampshade. So I called it the Bloody Lampshade. So it's not making fun of our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic who, over in Britain that use the word bloody to describe things. It literally has to do with bloody lampshade. So on Bloody Lampshade, I celebrated, I think, about 6 or 7 YouTubers that I've come across in the world of horror who make these short um, these short films. And if you're a person who doesn't want to dedicate an entire 2 hours to watching a good horror flick, most of my blogs have to do with areas of interest and things that I enjoy, hobbies that I enjoy, um, professions, different things like that. So each of them is a part of my life that I enjoy, that I really get down with. So I started off with seven, bookworm because I love books. Um, Anjanette Speak because I like, you know, paying attention to current events and giving, the biblical take on such things. So each of them have to do with something. I also will be retweeting or reposting um, things from other publications that I find interesting, which I did in the past. So if you see it and like, well, Internet, this is not one of your stories. I'm like, okay, but I thought it was interesting, so I'm sharing it onto the blog. So because I think you might find it interesting as well, and especially if it's something that I find interesting, and they pretty much went ahead and posted it first. I don't see nothing wrong with sharing it with you too, so that you can see some of the stuff that I find interesting. So I have been so over this past weekend, between watching, my newfound horror short films and posting to YouTube, so I finally found an app or website that allows me to convert my podcast um, into YouTube videos so that I can post on YouTube, so that the audience that I have on YouTube gets to hear what I talk about on my podcast. So they're an extension too. Um, so I went ahead and was doing that over the weekend. But while I was doing that over the weekend, I was also watching short horror clips, short horror films. And I'm like, I love them because, like I said, you may not, if you're a person like me and you're like addicted to horror, but you don't want to have to invest 2 hours to watching a horror movie because that's a huge chunk out of your day, but you still got to get that horror movie fix. Then the ones that I talked about, and I'll be posting some more because as I continue to watch them, I'm starting to see more of them showing up, and there's kind of a whole community. But I saw this one that was really interesting, and it was called What Daphne Saw, is the name of it. And I'll tell you what, one of the things with horror, one of the things that I like with film, period, is that you can preach a sermon with a film. You can preach a sermon about human rights abuses within the arc of a film and send a message that you could stand on somebody's pulpit and not get across, but you can look at it and act it out and direct it in a film and send that message, send that puppy all the way home. So I believe it was called what let me you know what? The nice thing about this being my own broadcast is that I can look up stuff right here in front of you and not have to worry about having to look all put together. So, what's Daphne saw? I believe it's what Daphne saw. So it's a 19 minute short form. So I was able to find it, and it's Liz Marshall who directed it. So it says in a dystopian future where violent crimes are reprogrammed into docile servant, a woman must survive her punishment of silent-minded servitude in a home that hides the darkest of secrets. So the people who make it, I already posted a couple films. One of them from them, and the name of the YouTube account or channel is called Alter, Alter. Um, may be triggering, but what I saw in it, um, I'm always a little alarmed when I hear when when I hear men say certain things that they want in a woman. I'm always a little okay. Then you're not the man for me. Because some things that men want, it's like there's still this thing of, and it's called What Daphne Saw. So I will say, warning: this film. Let me see here. Let me click on the YouTube channel. Forget expensive solar panels. Get so, and let's get with the description. So the content, there is a bit of a transcript. So the content warning: this film contains depictions of sex trafficking, sexual abuse, and pedophilia. It doesn't show it because it's YouTube, and they're very strict, which I wouldn't want to see anyway. Sexual abuse, and that may be extra disturbing for some viewers. So the theme of it is in a near future where violent criminals are reprogrammed into docile servants. So basically, it is a commentary on not only inherent sexism within the judicial system, and there are plenty of it, but also it's also a bit of a commentary on what they call rehabilitation. So, um, so in it, Daphne is this woman who is, part of her punishment is they have reprogrammed her, and she is a silent, mindless servant in a home that hides the deepest of secrets. So the person who directed it is a woman named Liz Marshall. So in it, the lady Daphne, um, they don't say the crime that she's committed, but she's sentenced to a life of servitude. She's made to be docile and obedient through artificial intelligence technology that is implanted into her brain. She's programmed to be a caregiver and placed into the home of a wealthy man named Paul, whose health is deteriorating. And so you see parts in this film. One of the things that they tell them explicitly is she's there only to do housework and look after their children. And they explicitly say no sex. And in the midst of this film, the person going to drop her off gropes her thigh. And then, the guy, what does he do? He sexually abuses her. And I thought to myself, what is it in men that when you say no sex, they turn right around and do it anyway? So in this film, it's just like when I hear guys talk about, well, what men want is food, sex, and silence. Okay. And I'm just looking at this, and it really kind of drove a lot of points home for me on the whole thing of needing women to be voiceless. Because when you think about the waves of feminism, most of them have been about women having a voice, not just in their own homes, not just in their own neighborhoods, but also a global voice, a say in how things are run. Think about the battle that's going on with the Supreme Court now. Women having a say in how things are run, especially those things that directly affect our home life, our ability to earn employment, educational opportunities, because without an educational opportunity, we would not be looking at our first African American woman in that place. A voice in how things are done. Um, there are women in the entertainment industry for per se, even though they are some of the highest paid women, they still are not being paid as well as their male counterparts. It still is not equal. Okay. the fact that the casting couch still exists. There are still, in the casting couch, basically, we should just call it by its proper name, and that is sexual harassment, abuses of sexual power. And this little film is 19 minutes long. And it really, think you when you think about when women don't have a voice because she couldn't talk, she was basically absolutely under his control. I remember years ago, my daughter had one of those little babies that they give teenagers to so they can see what it's like to have to care for an infant round the clock. And the baby cries, and you have to like put something in its mouth or whatever, and it stops crying. And people have reported that and it has sort of a chip in it that if you mistreat it or don't do it right or different stuff like that, when you turn the baby back in, they can tell if the baby has been misused. And I wondered about that for because even though this woman was still human, she still was a form of artificial intelligence. So she had been reprogrammed. And one of the things they said was no sexual abuse, and guess what? She was sexually abused. I'm not going to tell the rest of it because I would like for you to see it for yourself, and it's on YouTube, so it's free for you to see. But, and they talk about dystopian future. Um, I'm like, why do people always want to put stuff like that in a futuristic context as though women's rights haven't already been violated, especially women of color, because in the film, Daphne is a woman of color. She looks like she may be biracial or whatever, the actress playing her, but she's a woman of color. And there's a little girl in the film that is also, mute, what they call mute. She can't talk. And she's also a little girl of color. So you can read into that whatever you would like. But the fact of the matter is, I thought it was interesting that neither one of these would neither the girl nor the woman could talk. Think about not having a voice. Think about how many things you would suffer because you can't tell on the person who is doing the most to you. Not only can you not tell other people that you're being abused, but you can't tell the person that they're abusing you either. So you can't voice any discontent about what you're suffering. You can't tell them, ouch, that hurts. You can't say anything. And I think it's always interesting that many times, as a woman, especially a woman of color, many people kept complimenting Miss Brown Jackson on her ability to remain composed. The same thing that Will Smith got judged for, not being able to sit there while Chris Rock insulted his wife, is the very thing that Miss Brown Jackson was complimented on. Being able to sit there while people, and I heard Will Smith talk about it in the apology video, how you're supposed to be able to take all of that and um, not retaliate, not say anything back, not answer them to their folly. Right. So it's funny how minorities and women will oftentimes get complimented on the same thing. And then I see the clip of Bill Riley in his younger years throwing a fit over some stuff that over things not being perfect for him to do his live broadcast. Right. So think about the whole just that just that portion alone. Not being able to use this. Can't use your voice. Okay, so not being able to use your voice means that you not only can you not tell the person when they're hurting you and say ouch and no and stop. you also can't tell anybody else what you're suffering. You can't even go back to the agency that sent you there in the first place and say, hey, this is going on. And believe it or not, there's lots of abuses of power that take place within social services. People talk about, oh, foster care, blah blah blah. Kids get abused in foster care. That's what people don't tell you. Okay, people get abused. Abuse of power is everywhere. So the casting couch is everywhere. So when women are talking about equal rights, maybe we should change that narrative and stop calling it equal rights and call it human rights and put it all under human rights. They're the rights that you should have as a human being, period. I looked at the one black guy that I've been looking at here lately, and he was talking about the fact that a black woman was arrested for robbery that she didn't commit. Breathing while black, existing while black. Back in the 90s, we had coined a term called driving while black, and it was to describe racial profiling, which is a very real thing. However, I kind of spent it and called it breathing while black because we get hassled for things. And like I said, one of the reasons why I chose um, Black Like Me was because this was a white guy who decided to disguise himself as black to find out, are black people just exaggerating and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah. And he found out the things that he took for granted as a white male in this society, he didn't have them same rights. Don't linger too long outside. And this was back in the 60s. Right. So those same rights, the same thing that a white guy could sit up here and throw a fit and have a fit and go all kinds of crazy and nobody question it, or if anything, it'd make people run around even harder trying to cater to him because they just want him to shut up and stop throwing a fit. However, power, I guess I want you to take that into your week about how power is distributed and how many people who have enough privilege can throw an absolute temper tantrum over the same thing that a person don't have that privilege is now, expected to sit still and take a whole lot of abuse. And that's one of the things that Will Smith was talking about in their industry. Like, you have to listen to these, tone deaf jokes, insensitive jokes, people laboring stuff on you, the paparazzi coming out of nowhere, trying to get pictures of your newborn baby, and different little crazy stuff like that, and take it on the chin. If you're black, then you take it on the chin because of the whole thing of being labeled as aggressive. If you come at that person or do anything to defend yourself, then you're seen as aggressive for just simply wanting to defend the people around you and that you care about. So it's something to think about as you go into your week, the things that you take for granted, the things that you take for granted now as a black person who lives in the here and now. I tell people all the time, God did the right thing by allowing me to be born into the time period that I now live. I don't know that I would have survived slavery 5 minutes. I'm not even going to lie to you because my sense of being able to defend myself and not tolerate a whole lot of BS, and trust me, I done been through some BS. My sense of being able to defend myself, I don't know how long I could have lasted through that kind of torture. And the bad thing is our generation hasn't even like gone through slavery, and we're still triggered because because all of it has been passed down. There are stuff in 2022 that we are arguments that we're still having. Colorism is still a thing. Whether people acknowledge it, I don't think that the key is for black people to not acknowledge these things. Nobody's asking you to be hypersensitive because I don't think that helps. But there's nothing wrong with calling it BS. We are in a time period now where we have the ability to use platforms much like the one that I'm using now to call out microaggressions, to call out, to not only call it out but address it. Do you see what I'm saying? So I will be, finishing. I still have topics that I haven't talked about in the last couple months. So for me, April is not going to be an official, the official women's history or Black women's history or whatever, because I've already spent 2 months. But it's going to be the month that I continue to talk about the topics that I didn't get a chance to talk about during the prior 2 months. So I will continue to preach or minister as it will, or be an oracle as it will, upon these things. Um, and also remind you about Christ. Okay? If you really want to talk about injustice, if you really want to talk about that type of thing, I would suggest that you read the Gospels, the New Testament, and the accounts. Jesus set people free that other people were ignoring and overlooking and stepping over. And he taught a lot. Even if you wanted to talk about the parables were there to teach the people, first of all, about the kingdom of God and the nature of God and how God feels about his people versus what their religious teachers were teaching them about God. So important, because so many people, by the time some men get done with you, you would think that God wants every woman to be an open receptacle for all types of sexual abuse. As I said before, if you are a man and you think that you are called to leadership, and you think that leadership is a place for a man, I want you to remember that the next time you or one of your wolves in sheep's clothing buddies twist the scriptures to try to get some panties out of a woman. I don't see no scripture saying twist thou shalt twist the scriptures to support racism. Thou shalt twist the scriptures to support um, abuse of women and children or forced marriage. Thou shalt twist the scriptures, and instead of ministering the gospel to same sex loving people, I'm not one, um, we will use it as an excuse to create God hates fag signs. Because, yeah, that's really going to make somebody want to worship God. Now, I recognize, and I talk when I did my bit in hashtag activism over with the Yes All Women crowd. I told a person, I said, you know what? I recognize that Christianity doesn't support your lifestyle. We're not going to sit over here and fake the fun. It doesn't. But it also doesn't tell me not to care about your well being. It doesn't tell me to beat you and visit all kind of hate towards you because I don't understand your lifestyle. One thing we are called to do and that we don't do enough of is pray. There are plenty of people. If you look at all you have to do is look at an episode of the 700 Club and see all of the people who are at one point used to be a part of some lifestyle that we're like, what? And the person has been delivered and set free. Christianity is a very diverse discipline. We all, mm-mm, we all used to be something before we became a part of Christ. So we need to start to remember that. Okay. The next time you decide to twist the scripture to support racist teachings like Jezebel and use it as an excuse to try to make a black woman your paramour, Yeah, there's still some white men walking around wishing that paramour rights were a thing so they could get their little freak on and misuse black women or women of color sexually. It happens. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here because I didn't have an outline for today. I usually prepare one the night before. I didn't get a chance to because I had a lot of other stuff I had to do, and one of them was, I still have podcasts that I need to convert over to video form so I can get them on my YouTube. I also have rehearsal tonight for vocal chorus, so I will be creating content probably the rest of the day until it's time for me to leave, and tomorrow and everything else. So you guys have a good one, have a blessed one, and I will be seeing you over the internet. I will be live this Friday, and so I will be talking to you. I finally am out of Facebook jail. I think it's interesting that many people, especially people like myself that are doing content creating and what they call influencing, are now being put in Facebook jail. And I issued a complaint. I never go willingly. I'm a fighter. I'm gonna be a fighter until I leave this earth. When they decide they want to tell me what you are been for however many days, I always contest it because you never know. Contesting it makes them have to examine why they're messing with you because I got into trouble for a piece of content that didn't even contain what they were saying it contained. Oh, nudity and sexual this, that, and the other. I said, it says that I am a singer. Okay, so it has no nudity in it whatsoever. And I mean, I had to spend that whole day um, dealing with them on that because whatever the system was messed it up, busted up, or whatever. So the devil will fight you. One thing that Will Smith said: when you're at your highest point, the devil will try you. He'll come for you. I'm not at my highest point, and many times he still comes for me. It's the message that is on your lips, so you have to be careful. But yeah, I'm just now being able to. I don't see no notifications telling me that my video wasn't able to be posted on any other different channels or anything. Anyway, what I'm saying today will be available on the Internet Speak page. So for those of you who aren't able to listen to me at noon because you work or whatever, this same message will be available this evening on the Internet Speak blog. So you guys enjoy your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Try your level best to be godly in all things. Try to remember Jesus first in all that you do. And have a good one.